Pass the Vazul, baby.
Come on in. Come on in, no, this ain't no dream. When I love it, when I stay in style, from your head down to your ow. Scream until you like it, never gonna stop. Scream until you like it, get ready to rock. Scream until you like it.
Hello, Screamers! Welcome to Scream Until You Like It podcast. As always, I hope you're still screaming. I hope you're starting to like it. I am Clint Swan. That is a reference to the movie we're talking about today, and I am here with the Mike Pool, aka Evil Mike. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good.
Yeah. So I was wrong when I said that this is a movie that not a lot of people talk about. I actually did a search through YouTube and I looked for reviews on this movie, and I found quite a few. And one of them actually, if you've heard of him, Jason Nike, who does that backtrack cinema show, he recently did it like just a few days ago.
I've
So
heard
it's
it.
like-
I've heard of that show.
yeah, it was a short review though. It wasn't nearly as in depth as we're gonna go, but I mean, so shout out to them real quick, and I just want to say that this is a movie that hits me a little differently than some of the other ones we've talked about. I am a longtime Clint Eastwood fan, and that is 100% my dad's fault. We watched spaghetti westerns. We watched most of the Harry Callahan movies. I even watched some of his other ones like The Gauntlet and things like that. There is a couple of holes in my Clint Eastwood viewing. Like you mentioned, like in Sudden Impact. I never watched that movie.
Oh, that's a good one.
I have to go back and watch that one. So maybe one of these nights we can watch that, and I can fill that gap and decide for myself if I like the Harry Callahan.
That has the famous "Make My Day" scene.
Oh, does it?
Go ahead, make my day.
Really? So what, they did it again? I mean, other than
He doesn't say "Make My Day" in Dirty Harry. That's the. I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 5 or 6 rounds?
okay.
That's when he's like, "Do you feel lucky, punk? Do you?"
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's wow. Like, is that one of those like Mandela effect things where it's like people think that they've seen that and they really haven't, just because of how popular it is in pop culture?
Well, his lines have gotten so popular. I think a lot of people don't even realize that there's so many movies.
Uh-huh.
That there's 5 Dirty Harry movies.
Right.
You know, a lot of people just attribute the "Make My Day," all the "You're feeling lucky," everything to like the first Dirty Harry movie. You know,
Okay.
so I think that's just the overpopularity of it. You know, and I'm the same with you. If it wasn't for my dad was a big Clint Eastwood fan, and I watched all these movies with him, and they're great.
Yeah. I would dare say that because of that experience and watching, all of those movies with my father, that I gave other Clint Eastwood movies a try that otherwise maybe I wouldn't have. Like, I was drawn to the movie because he was in it. I could say that about Pink Cadillac. I could say that about Heartbreak Ridge. There's In the Line of Fire.
There's
those
so
movies.
many different types of characters that he's played.
Yeah.
That not just, you have the Dirty Harry, then you have the spaghetti western, Fistful of Dollars, Hang 'em High, High Plains Drifter.
Oh.
But then you get the comedic, you get like Bronco Billy, Any Which Way But Loose.
Uh-huh.
Then you get the serious, In the Line of Fire and Heartbreak. It's such a broad spectrum of movies
Yeah.
You know, so you can't even typecast him if you wanted to, because he's does so many different types of movies, and he's
Yeah.
badass in all of them. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah. I would have to say that he probably holds a special place for me. To the point where, you know, some people who don't have that experience outside of the situation would question it. Why? You know what I mean? It's just a point of nostalgia. Just like this movie, the Deadpool from 1988. Um, I saw this in the theater um, with my dad, and honestly, it was a special experience. And I'd have to say there is a ton of nostalgia for this movie. Going back to look at it again, um, and I have to say I was kind of scared to go back and watch it again because so many times I've watched a movie, sometimes, well, recently, Clint Eastwood movies, you know, in this same genre. I've gone back to watch them again, and I'm like, oh, fuck, this movie sucks.
There are some stinkers. I mean, we watched the other night, Tightrope.
Tightrope, yes. I distinctly remember liking that movie when I was a kid. And I
And
watched it again. I was like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Like, it didn't even make any sense.
yeah,
I was so mad about it. I
they
was
gave him
like,
a little ass gun. They were like, "What the?" I was like, "What am I watching here?"
yeah. And like, the killer was underdeveloped. Like, when they did the reveal at the end, I had no idea who I was looking at.
Yeah, it was.
I don't even know if you were supposed to know. I was like, who the fuck is that guy?
All you saw
Like-
were those ugly ass sneakers the whole fucking time.
Exactly. I'm like,
But
was
what-
he a cop? Did we figure this out at some
If
point?
it wasn't for the popsicle chick,
Yeah,
that movie, she was like the only saving grace of that movie.
right. Well, at the end of the movie, I was thinking that you know, he is like the world's worst detective because he's just going into like the New Orleans night scene and he's like banging prostitutes and he's trying to figure out who the killer is. And in the end, the killer's so frustrated that he hasn't been caught, he goes to his house. And
You
know what I mean?
I'm right here.
So yeah. So yeah, maybe cross that one off your list. I don't think I'm gonna review that movie.
Yeah, that's
Oh, and I also watched The Enforcer. I watched that one by myself.
that's my least favorite Dirty Harry
Oh,
movie
man, is it awful?
with Tyne Daly, and it was just basically him being just a a male chauvinist the whole movie.
Oh, absolutely. and like he begrudgingly respects her at the end, you know, because she took bullets for him.
Yeah,
I mean, like, this is to get the fuck out of here. And
yeah,
then
it was.
that whole scene, you know, with the rocket launcher, you know, at the end, it's like, okay, why would the dude like drag that, you know, drag the mirror up there, leave him on the lower level and go all the way up to the top by himself?
Yeah,
Why would you do that? It's like yeah, I that movie was not good on my list, and I probably won't be watching it again. Now I remember why I only saw it once.
yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing, because I went back and did a watch of all of them,
Yeah.
and when I got to that movie, I'm like, oh, this one sucks. I'm like, this one.
And you know, and despite anything else, I actually did kind of like Tyne Daly in that. She did a good job. I just don't like how they wrote her character.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. She didn't nothing wrong with what
yeah.
she did.
She went on to do Cagney and Lacey. I mean,
Big time. Yeah,
and I think, I mean, I could be wrong. I think that was on the strength of that movie. Like,
I would say I would believe that in a second.
yeah. But anyhow,
There was a big span of these movies, though. They went. I mean, yeah, Dirty Harry was 71.
yeah.
We had Magnum Force in 73.
Mhm.
The Enforcer was 76. So they were like on a steady roll there. Then
Yeah.
we don't get Sudden Impact till 83. And this movie was 88. Release date July 13th, 1988.
And I was reading a little bit of trivia on it, which I'm sure you were reading some of the same stuff.
Yeah.
And the production schedule of this was super fast. Like, they basically greenlit the project in January. of that year. They started filming in February. This thing was actually done and out in July.
And I read
Less than
that
5 months they were done.
the director, Buddy Van Horn,
Uh-huh.
well, if you look him up, he's directed a lot of Clint Eastwood movies. He's a good friend of Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And I read that that's why Clint Eastwood wanted him to direct this, because he was, I guess, notably, he was known for being a fast director.
Yeah.
Like Jim Carrey was on this movie for 3 days.
That was actually kind of cool. I'm sure we'll talk about him when we really break into it. But, dude, Jim Carrey freaking killed it. Like, we're used to seeing him as this, like, slapstick, like, rubber face, like, crazy, acting dude because of, like, the Ace Ventura movies.
Ace Ventura, like, even like Fire Marshal Bill, like when he was on Living Color and stuff like that.
But he gave this a real performance. Like, I believed his character.
Without a doubt. He did a great job.
Yeah. And his death scene was really impactful. Like, that's one of those things that I immediately remembered after years in between viewings of this movie. I remembered his performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's pretty kick-ass. Did you see this in the theater?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you go alone?
This was not with my dad, though. This was, I was 16, 17 when this came out. So I went and I remember seeing this with my friends.
Oh, okay. Yeah. First impressions of the movie.
As a younger kid, when I saw it, it didn't have to do much to impress me. Just Clint Eastwood on screen with his gun. I was like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, I was into it a lot more than my friends were. Some of my friends were like, meh,
Yeah.
I was like, this is great, wasn't it? I was like, especially it was 88, Guns N' Roses was in it. I was like, look, that alone was like, oh, so look, there's Guns N' Roses.
Right.
So it was I was happy just to see another Dirty Harry movie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was like you. They didn't have to do a lot to draw me in. I was drawn in from the opening music. The opening scene was awesome. The fact that there was a relevant song of the time in the movie, that they were highlighting. I mean, what song can you think of at that time that was more popular than Welcome to the Jungle?
Oh, without a doubt. It was.
Yeah. I mean, what do you got to pick? Freaking Def Leppard? Like, it's like,
no,
that was the biggest
the theme
song
of the movie too. Welcome to the Jungle. It was.
Yeah.
It was a great pick for the movie. And
yeah. So I don't know. You want to break into it?
And we start off. What do we have? We have
it starts off with a news report. Because they want to give you like just a tiny bit of background as to what's going on with Harry Callahan's character right now.
Right, because he's
they talk
ready
about
to testify.
Yes, the Lou Gennaro case.
And the Lou Gennaro case. So it starts off with Lou Gennaro's guys making a hit on Harry. Right.
So we get this nice little driving sequence. He's always driving at night. I mean, and he's crossing a bridge. He passes an exit. He ends up getting irritated that these cars are following him too close. He's getting an idea that like he's being followed because he's like, get off my ass. You know what I mean? And a car, pretty nice Camaro, I might add, passes him and he looks at him, and then they basically just like stop right in front of him. And of course he locks up the brakes. A couple of guys with machine guns hop out, and he like backs up. And then he goes right forward at him, crushes the one dude in the door, which is freaking brutal.
Yeah, that was great.
That looked awesome. Then he backs up again and hits the car behind him, which was really cool. All while under gunfire. It's amazing. The guy never gets hit. He's like
got guys with Uzis and and he's got a handgun, and meanwhile, not a scratch.
Yeah, and I might add, when he pulls forward again, he turns to the right. and it is the lamest car flip scene I've ever seen in my life. It's like he drove it right up a ramp and it just fell over. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh fuck, Harry, I thought you were gonna do this like brilliant getaway.
Yeah.
You know, next thing you know, there's a dude crawling up on top of the car, and he's like, bam, like hits that guy right in the head.
And then they ended like with that one guy running, and it's like they give you that gratuitous shot where he's right behind him, and he just watches him run, and boom.
Yeah. So yeah, he only had to shoot 3 people in that scene because he took care of the other guy with the car.
Yeah.
Pretty good opening scene, despite the lame ass car rollover.
Yeah.
And of course they cut to a scene where he's walking into the captain's office, you know, getting berated by him about how much an unmarked police car costs. It's like $13,000 and some change. And all I could think about was, damn, I wish they cost that much now.
Right.
I'd drive around in a freaking Oldsmobile if they only cost $13,000, you know?
Yeah, big time.
But they have a discussion about the Lou Gennaro case, and basically it's kind of a heated discussion. And they pull him off the streets because they're like, we need to figure out what to do. So you don't get like killed before you have a chance to testify, you know, in the Lou Gennaro case. And of course, public relations dude is there, the lieutenant, and he wants him to cooperate more with the press.
And
you know, which kind of is the theme that goes through this movie. Like working with the press is like throughout this entire film.
I ain't no dog and show pony.
Yeah, no dog and pony show.
Pony show. Yeah, they want him to play nice with the press, and they want, you know,
and they're saying all the things like, you know, your thing on the Gennaro case is, you know, done a lot for the department's image, and for once it's positive, you know.
Yeah.
they're like, we just want you to play ball with the press, and he's like, how positive would the company image be if I resigned?
Yeah.
You know, or the department image. And they're like, whoa, you know, let's not get crazy. They bring in Al Quan, the Chinese American officer who worked in the gang task force.
Yes.
And they're like, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh, well, you know, the department could really use Al's experience, you know. Yeah, well, we're moving him to homicide. He's your new partner. And he's like, what?
Which he plays that in basically every movie, that same scene. Make sure you get yourself a bulletproof vest.
Yeah. That was a good line. If I had to say anything about this movie, I'd say that the writing was better.
Yeah.
And I was trying to look up the writer of the script, Steve Sharon, and I couldn't come up with a lot. I only found this movie as his only real credit on IMDb. I couldn't find any real biography information on him because I was really intrigued by him for a couple of reasons. One, this movie was written pretty well, in my opinion. It had some really good dialogue. You know, I don't know if that was attributed to him or some of the rewrites with other writers that were on the project, but also the horror movie stuff. There was a lot of like almost like slasher type filming in this.
Like somebody went in and they had to do their research.
Somebody knew how to film a slasher movie when they did this. So I don't know if it was the director. I don't know if it was the writer. And I know we'll get into it, but I mean, the movie posters for the fake horror movies, you know,
like we said when we watched it, we were like, we'd probably see all of those movies.
I would watch those movies.
And then another thing, I read after the fact that it's hard to catch the movie. What was the Satan?
Hotel Satan.
Hotel Satan.
Yeah.
The face on the movie poster is the witch from Season of the Witch.
Yeah,
Halloween
Part 3, Halloween 3.
When I read that and I went back, they changed the color and
yeah.
But I was like, how cool is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's pretty clear that somebody worked on this project either in like production design or something like that, who was an actual horror fan.
Somebody was definitely a horror fan.
Because they hit all the right notes.
Exactly.
You know, they had cool movie titles, they had awesome taglines, you know, they had great looking posters. And when they did like the little montage scene where they were showing highlights from some of Peter Swan's films, some of his supposed films, it's like they looked like legit horror movies, and either stuff that I felt like I'd seen or I would have watched.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Somebody was absolutely a horror fan, and it definitely showed that.
Yeah. I wish I could have figured it out before we did this talk, because I totally would have highlighted whoever that was. Because they deserve a little recognition for those neat little things in there.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So Harry is not into having a partner, but it's what he's got to do to stay on the street. And he was like, you know, most of my partners end up in the hospital or dead. He's like, maybe you want to ask Al how he thinks about that, you know? And he's like, well, I think I can handle it. And that's when he threw out the line you talked about: get a bulletproof vest, kid. You know, and that's kind of where they ended it. You know, that he kind of just reluctantly accepted the fact that he was going to have a partner now, and now we're going to figure out something about, you know, Al Quan. And this is where we cut to what you talked about, the Jim Carrey scene.
Jim Carrey shooting a video, singing with a exorcist-like dummy in the bed.
Yeah. And so it actually started out really cool. You know, you got like the Welcome to the Jungle theme, you know, coming on there, and he's like doing a really good lip sync, and he's like dancing and kicking his legs and stuff like that, and like really acting out things that are in the song. Yeah. And then purposely they had him like go out of sync with the recording, and he actually did that really good too. And they stopped it, you know, and you find out what a dick Peter Swan really is, because he's like, cut, Johnny, you're out of sync, you know. And
we have a very young Liam Neeson.
Yeah, very young Liam Neeson. And I will say,
with a ponytail.
Right. Which is not a great look on anybody. No. But and it really, I feel like it didn't really work for him. I want to say that was probably a hair extension that they put in wardrobe.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
You know, but let me just say, not being English myself, I felt his English accent was great.
Definitely.
Now I don't know what an actual like English person would say to that. You know, they probably pick it the hell apart and say, "Oh, he's got a dialect. Sounds like it's a mixture of this and that." You know, or like he's just pretending to be like somebody you see on the nightly news. But I thought it was good, and it was actually because of that at this time in my life, not being super exposed to him, I thought he was English.
Oh, I would have doubted it. I don't recall at that age, but yes, seeing that for the first time, I would have thought the same.
Yeah, but and it was much later that I found out that he was Irish. His accent is way different,
big time.
Yeah, but yeah,
we have Jim Carrey yelling at him.
Oh, he was so good,
saying first he was pissed. He's like, "Why aren't we on a set? Why do we have to shoot in a warehouse?" And Liam Neeson tells him, "Well, because the cold will gives you the breath, and it's more for
the audience to see your breath when you sing."
He goes, "Well, if you were a good director, you'd be coming up with original crap instead of doing a cheap Exorcist knockoff."
Yeah,
because it's not a knockoff; it's a homage.
Yeah, exactly.
You can tell how pissed off he got.
Got all upset and indignant about it. He's like, "It's not a ripoff; it's a homage." You stupid, you know. Then he realized that he was hurting, as he said it, you know, that he was jonesing for a hit.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I don't believe you. You're hurting, aren't you?" You know, and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." You know, and they had this brief discussion that, you know, was about drugs. And he's like, "You know what? Just let me go back to the trailer and I'll get it together. We'll come back and we'll kick some ass." You know, he's like, "All right." He's like, "Can I get a coat? Somebody get a coat for Johnny." You know. So he leaves, goes to his trailer. We see a pretty convincing shoot up scene.
Yeah, that I was gonna say that
Yeah.
a very convincing scene.
And his immediate reaction to it felt appropriate to me. You know, where he basically just had, you could see the wash of euphoria go over him, you know, and that he just kind of sat there doing this like little la la, you know, laughing shit, you know, which was really cool. And then like the timing of the killer was perfect. Like no sooner did that happen, door opens, you just see a little bit of light, you hear the door, a figure clearly walked in, and he's like, what do you want? You know, that type of shit.
Yeah.
And it's like just grabs him by his hair, like shoves some shit in his face. You know what I mean? And to me, that was a pretty convincing overdose scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had an immediate reaction to it, you know, like just had this primal like shaking it off and like stumbling forward, and then he like is crawling back, and like you can feel like the pain of like his heart giving out, like, and his like I'm telling you, Jim Carrey freaking killed that scene.
He did.
I don't care if he was only on set for 3 days. He gave a great performance in that, and I don't know if that really earned him any real credit or got him any other jobs.
He's not even credited as Jim Carrey. He's credited as James Carrey.
James Carrey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that work should have got him more jobs.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. And I don't know if it did or not, but I mean, it's definitely something he could have touted out at some point. And the killer takes the Hotel Satan poster, which I thought was cool. He just grabbed a trophy from the scene and left.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, we got to continue the investigation. We get Harry and Alquan. They're looking at it. Somehow, Harry must have learned some stuff about medical examination, because he's sitting there saying, well, you know, he's got crystalline powder around his mouth. He's got scabs up and down both arms, you know, and he like found the spot where he just recently injected. I'm like, don't you normally have like a coroner in here to do this? You know, but like Harry's just kind of winging it, you know. And
Harry Callahan, I don't need a coroner.
Yeah, he's like, I could figure this shit out. And and they go outside, and I feel like he's actually attempting for like 2 seconds to do what the lieutenant said and cooperate with the press. But then they see that Corvette drive up, and they know it's Johnny's girlfriend, and they go rushing her. Because it's like they want to get like a reaction, like her basically knowing that he's dead. And it's like, yeah, that was a pretty compelling scene. It's pretty pivotal, in my opinion, that to express like how bloodthirsty the press seems to be. Sometimes.
Definitely portrayed the press as the vultures they can be sometimes.
Yeah. And Harry's not the most caring individual on the planet. He never was in any of the previous movies, and this was no exception. But for some reason, he felt to take it upon himself to try to shield this poor girl from the press. Gets in the middle, tells them to back off. They don't do it, so he rips the camera out of the dude's hands and like throws it. He does like a shot put with this thing, and it like hits the ground. You see the lens break and all that stuff. You're like,
that was great.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And of course, Samantha Walker, the reporter that keeps showing up, you know, is like smart. I felt this scene was appropriate.
Oh, yes. Patricia Clarkson.
She's great. She's great. I've seen her in a bunch of stuff, but it's
she has been. Like I told you the other day, she's attractive, but she kind of looks like a bird. So she's got a little like a weird look to her, but she's still very attractive.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and she's got kind of like that that low voice, not quite raspy, but almost.
Yes.
Which is I don't know. There's almost a seductive quality to the way she talks.
Yes, but I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know if that's one of the reasons why she got cast in this or not, but I mean, it would have played a factor for me. If I'm, getting people who can like basically act like a reporter, but also have some level of attraction, that we can make a believable connection between, Harry Callahan and them. And this movie is just old enough that we found out the killer uses a typewriter.
Yes.
This is before the world of word processing and computers and printers. Now, it would have been equally believable if he had like a Commodore 64 and like a dot matrix
some
printer.
kind of he had like
or an Apple II with a processing program on it. But no, he's old school. He's using a typewriter. I found it interesting that he's typing up the letter to the press, and the envelope and everything, and he's using his bare hands to touch all the paper.
Yeah, it's
so it's like we haven't caught up forensically in the movie to be like, oh, well, maybe we should have him wear gloves. But
yeah, really.
To me, that was kind of a plot hole, but I suppose it didn't really matter because we find out that he sent that letter to the press. And that was going to be contaminated regardless.
Yeah.
Without the police getting hold of it.
And to go back a second, I like the interaction between Liam Neeson and Clint Eastwood when he's talking and interviewing him.
Yeah.
And when it's Clint Eastwood, he's like, does everybody on your set do drugs? He's like, we don't do drugs, we do film. What they do on their own time is their own business.
Yeah. Yeah. All they wanted to do was, it seemed, was with every scene with Liam Neeson's character, Peter Swan, was to make him appear as pretentious and douchey as possible.
Yeah.
And they did a good job. Like, whoever wrote that probably had some experience with some douchey people.
Yeah, I believe
that. Because everything he said, like throughout the entire movie, he's like, oh, that's their problem, not mine. As long as it doesn't interfere with my film, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Drugs were his trademark. His people were in charge of, whatever his issues were, not me.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that's a very caring attitude. like, look, what do you want from me? Drugs was his trademark. He spent half his career singing about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then later on, he's like talking about how everybody's jealous of him and his talent. And I'm like, oh my God. Could there be a more self-absorbed, pretentious, douchey director? I'm not sure. Maybe.
And you can, I mean, later in the movie, really doesn't mean, but when he's like in the theater, like reviewing footage and stuff, and Harry Callahan walks in, he's like, like this dick again.
Exactly. Like he just, to a degree, I can kind of feel for him. He just wants to work on his film. That's all he wants. Like, why are you people fucking harassing me? Yeah. So yeah, the killer sends a letter to several news studios. From what we find out, Samantha Walker gets it first. She does a piece on it, which is basically just a letter on how the Deadpool works and a list of everybody who's on it. So that's now public knowledge. And I think it's important to note that. And then we get a weird scene. Harry and Quan are getting tea in Chinatown for some reason. And I really feel that it's only to get 5 seconds of character development on Al Quan. And then immediately that's cut short. And we get a broken window in a Chinese restaurant, some dude flying through it. So some morons decide to rob a Chinese restaurant. And looking at it now, I'm like, why? It's like, couldn't you find a better target? It's like, it's a fucking Chinese restaurant. You know, you're going to go in there, 4 dudes with guns, shoot somebody. All you're getting is a till and whatever you can get out of the patrons in the restaurant. You know, not to mention, you know, the one dude.
It's like lunchtime and the streets are mobbed in a crowded Chinatown area. It's like, where is...
Right. And the one dude looks like the Wish version of Anthony Michael Hall with a rat tail.
Yeah.
And I feel like they made this scene like it felt like it didn't belong. And they made this scene just so they could have Harry slip in,
shoot some people.
Yeah, go for backup. He slips in somehow without them seeing him. Right. Sits at a table.
You forgot your fortune cookie.
Exactly.
It was just for that. It was like fan service.
Right. Crushes it one hand. Somehow the dude stands there to listen for it.
Want to know what it says?
Yeah.
Set your shit out of luck.
Then the guy gets pissed off, goes to raise his gun, and just gets plowed with a 44 mag in the chest. And he shoots 2 other guys. Shot the guy with the shotgun. And then
another Remington 870.
Yeah. And the other dude got hit twice.
Yeah.
Got hit. He got hit once, knocked down, then he stood up, and then he shot him and blew him back into that fish tank, which was kind of cool looking.
Yeah.
Goes outside to kill the other guy, and then Quan decides to just kick his ass.
Kicking the shit out of him in the street.
Yeah. He kung fu's this guy. You know. He goes full Mr. Miyagi. You know what I mean? And like does this like double leg kick thing, knocks him down, fucking handcuffs him and like brings him back. And Harry has his dumb line that's echoed from an earlier scene. He's like, personally, I think that teaming up with a Chinese American is good for the department's image. I'm like, so, but in my opinion, the scene was almost completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, it's only there for the cool factor. It doesn't make a lot of sense, as we pointed out already. And the only reason, you know, that we had anything leading up to it was to get a little bit of character development on his partner, Quan.
You're right. They only cut that. I mean, because with the guy where they're walking out of the restaurant, I guess like one of the owner of the restaurant says something in Chinese to Quan and like curses him out. And he's like, what was that all about? He's like, I told you I wasn't.
Yeah.
I used to run with gangs and we used to hit them up for money.
Yeah, that's right. Protection money in the neighborhood.
I was like, the guy didn't see you until you were leaving. It was like the guy served you food and you had to.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, that was all just to have I'm going to shoot the bad guy scene.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad it's there.
Oh, yeah.
It's a cool scene, but it's almost entirely unnecessary for the plot of this movie. So like that could have been a short film. They could have used that as a trailer and left it out of the final cut. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it didn't do a lot to further the story. But what?
Well, the only thing that does pertain to the story is the guy that Quan beat up had the Deadpool list on his person.
Well, see, that was the weird thing. They got it off the dead guy who went through the window. That was somebody working on the Motel Hell movie. And he was, and that's why he said wrong, just some poor guy in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Wrong time.
And they found it on his body. And they're like, I'm like, wait a fucking second. It's like, why did we even need that mechanic to find that Deadpool list? Because in the very next thing, you know, we had the news reporter doing a broadcast on it because she got a letter. So like it was almost completely unnecessary.
It's totally not needed.
Yeah, and they threw it in basically just to have another vehicle of delivering the Deadpool list to Harry.
Yeah. So
he would know that he was on it. So up to this point, he didn't even know he was on a list.
Right.
So I'm like every angle I looked at the scene from, I'm like, this didn't need to be here. And maybe I'm crazy, but I still like the scene. Not gonna lie.
Yes.
It was cool. We get a little weirder yet. Harry gets taken into the captain's office again. They start railing him about, destroying, a camera.
Mhm.
He's like, I got a bill for a camera and a lens. He's like, when I told you to stop, wrecking our police cars, I didn't tell you to go out and find something else to destroy, you know. and they're talking about a $2 million potential lawsuit, against the city by the news station, whose camera he destroyed. And of course, they walk her right in, Samantha Walker, to basically discuss it briefly. And she's like, I'm willing to drop the lawsuit, but all that depends on Inspector Callahan. Suddenly, she's inviting him out to dinner. I'm like, it's a weird way to ask somebody out on a date,
Yeah.
But we did find out that she was using the lawsuit as leverage to try to get an exclusive interview with him, because he's had this long past history of,
And she obviously
Putting
has been researching him for a long time,
oh yeah,
because she pulls out a binder, and if you even notice when she turns one of the pages, there's the newspaper clipping. It says Scorpio killer caught, which is
Yeah.
the killer from Dirty Harry, the first movie.
exactly.
So she's been building this information on him for a long time.
Right. Because he has a long history of basically facing off with some of the city's worst, criminals and or killers, and basically either putting them behind bars or doing away with them.
Yeah.
And she's very interested in doing a piece on that. And he wants nothing to do with that. He like shuts her down right away, and he's like, all you people want is blood, and you don't care, who you steamroll over to get it. And all I know is I'm a cop with a price on my head, and you just want to like, ride on the fact that they might be successful and increase your ratings. So he storms out, she gets all offended. And that's kind of just the way that went. So in true Harry Callahan fashion, that's exactly how we would expect him to react, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. I do want to throw in there that they had another seemingly unnecessary scene. For some reason in these movies, they always like to do like workout scenes. Like every single one. It doesn't matter if he's, boxing, lifting weights, jogging. They're always doing some type of like workout thing, in these movies. I don't know if that was supposed to be eye candy for the ladies watching the movies or something like that, but it's like, I'm like, this feels out of place. This also feels like an unnecessary scene. But the thing that I noticed, having just talked, like you and I just watched the movie Tightrope.
Yeah.
I swear the red sweatpants that he wears in this movie are the same ones that he wore in Tightrope. They look exactly the same. Like the shirt's different. That's it. Like, I feel like these were his personal sweatpants.
The problem, I don't doubt it for a bit. And I'll tell you another funny thing that I just read today. And when I watched it, I had to make a point to watch it.
All right.
If you look at everybody working out, there's no weights on whether it's a machine, they're pushing the machine, there's no weights, there's no plates on it. Whether they're doing dumbbells, there's no plates. And they said because they didn't want to put weights on them, because obviously the scene took a bunch of takes. And if they would have had weight, they wouldn't have been able to do it. Yeah. And if you look, there's one girl laying on her stomach, and she's like, where you fold your legs back. But I even had my niece laugh. I was like, she looks like she's sleeping, like she's taking a nap. She's just like, it's like there's no. I'm like, I was like, that made me crack up.
That's one of those weird things that I never noticed.
Well, I would have never noticed if I didn't read it, I would have never caught it.
Yeah. Like because you're so focused on the conversation that they're having together that you're not really paying attention to the people in the background.
Go back and watch that scene. You'll crack up. It's hysterical.
I think I will. That sounds like an amazing thing to do.
And what did the part with those two knucklehead cops that like tail Harry for his autograph? Did that happen already?
No,
Where he
that
thinks
was a
he's
little bit
getting
later.
and he grabs one and puts the gun to the other. Oh,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
just want your autograph.
No. I think that was a little bit later. If
That's like
I'm
another
being honest.
dopey scene that I felt like didn't really need to be there, but it was funny.
Right. That was kind of the mark of this movie. Just like all these unnecessary filler things that had nothing to do with the plot of the film. It was either put in there, just to shoot something cool or so Harry could do something funny.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
maybe even just to say, because one of the cops was like, well, Harry, we need more people like you taking this garbage off the streets. Like somebody was like pro,
yeah.
not everybody's just like, you're just at the department saying you just destroy shit and,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you get some dude there stroking his ego. What we need is more guys like you, Harry, taking these scumbags off the street.
Yeah.
Now that happens right before the elevator scene.
Right before the elevator. She was like, do you always was that your first order? He goes, yeah. He goes, hopefully my last.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the only thing that happens before that, leading up to it, is they get mad about the news broadcast. He goes to see her at the news station and just confronts her about it. It's like, did you ever think to like run it by the department before you did that? She's like, no, because they sent it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get the story out first. And she's like, I'm sorry if you feel like I derailed your investigation. That was not my intention, but it's like, I got the story. So again, he feels like that's the most important thing to her.
Thanks, her, yeah.
But he kind of had, somewhat of a change of heart even before he went in there, because he's like, oh, it seems like I owe you one. It's just like, what's that? Dinner. So now we've reversed it. She didn't ask him to dinner. He asked her to dinner. And they go.
Now he's getting into the I want to bone you phase.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
He's getting into that. He's starting to soften up to the idea of like an exclusive. I don't know what kind of restaurant they went to, but it was better than the first one, because they go up to like the third floor of a building in this like outdoor elevator.
Window.
Yeah. And he gets more of her story. So we're learning more about, her as a reporter and who she is as a person. And so like you could tell he's either open to getting to know her better, or, he's just trying to, I don't know, get a girlfriend temporarily. I don't know. But that's where they go to leave. He's like, well, let's think on it about the exclusive. And she's like, deal. And that's when you get the two dudes that want his autograph. Of course, he thinks somebody's pulling a gun. He grabs him, shoves him against the wall, sticks his gun in the other guy's face. He's like, hey, I just wanted your autograph, And the other dude's like, can I shake your hand? And he's like, we need more cops like you, Callahan. Get these scumbags off the street. And he's like, yeah, can you make it out to, what was it, Chester something? Chester Dockstetter? I was like, what kind of name is Chester Dockstetter? And so he does all that, and the one dude's like, I gotta change my shorts. like he shit himself after having a gun in his face. So it's like they put that in there only for like comic relief. You know what I mean?
And what I get was like right after that, they go in the elevator and he gets attacked by Gennaro's men again. And where were those two guys that just held, like you just asked him for his autograph? You couldn't have been very far, and you don't hear the guys shooting him with friggin' Uzis again? And it's like they're nowhere to be found.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and on top of that, Lucinero does nothing but hire incompetent hitmen.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why? Why would that be your plan? To shoot at them from the ground floor with Uzis, at an elevator that's on the third floor that's coming down. Why wouldn't you just wait for him to get to the bottom and shoot him when the door's open?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a competent hitman would do that. But like they didn't. They just did it for like the theatrics of it. And he's like, he throws her down, lays on top of her to protect her, like a real, warrior. And I reaches up, hits the button to stop it on the second floor instead of going down to the ground.
I read that when they did that scene too, she was real, because what they did apparently, because obviously the guns weren't real, but they were firing marbles through the window to break the window and give that effect. So, but
Wow, they were in there.
But between the loud gunfire, like the fire sounds and the windows breaking, even though it was fake, she said she was scared shit, but she was like very comforted when Clint Eastwood jumped on top of her.
Yeah.
She goes, actually, I was like, I guess I would too. I would be like,
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And that kind of blows my mind that they really did something that dangerous while they were actually in there. Like, I thought that was all like kind of staged, you know,
Yeah.
like, like you would do something that would not be harmful. And you just shoot the other stuff and do like creative cuts to just kind of piece it all together.
Yeah,
Like,
really.
it kind of blew my mind to read that little bit that they did some of that while they were actually in the elevator. I was
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? You know, it's like, did they have to sign waivers or like get extra insurance, to do that? I mean, it's like, that's so weird. But it was cool. It looked great.
It was the 80s, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously he gets up off the ground. He goes out, dodges like a shot from the one guy, shoots him. The other guy goes running off for a getaway car. He takes 2 shots at him, puts him down. The getaway car just drives away. He's like, oh, fuck, he's dead. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And I find it funny that he goes back. He's trying to comfort her. They say a news reporter, like doing a preliminary like reporting on what happened. She sees him. She's like, oh, it's my competition. I don't really want to be on the news.
Yeah. How ironic.
Yeah.
He's like, let's get you out of here.
Yeah, let's get you out of here, So now we get another like fun scene because to this point in the movie, they don't know what to do about all these hits that are put out by Lou Gennaro. So we get the prison scene.
This is great to see.
I know. How fun was that? I mean, Harry must have cooked up this idea on his own. He goes in there and he wants to see this one guy.
Butcher Hicks.
Yeah, Butcher Hicks, just this big, hefty dude. He's like, they're like, hey, you got a visitor. And he looks out, he's like, fuck do you want? He's like, I brought you some cigarettes. And he goes, what do I got to do for him? He's like, nothing. Just stand where I tell you. And so they walk to the cell block where Lou Gennaro is. And he's like, wait here. Just there in the corner. Goes to see him. They do not have a great conversation. Where like Lou Gennaro's like, oh yeah, I heard about the Deadpool. Good news travels fast. He's like, I need you to call off your men. I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, you know what? You got too much time on your hand. You need a job. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, a job. He like yanks him out. He said, you see that gorilla down there?
Yeah.
He's like, that's Butcher Hicks. He killed 3 men. Know how he did it? Tore him apart with his teeth. They didn't even find all the pieces. And he's like, so what? He's like, well, he said, I'm going to be sending him a letter once a week about how I'm looking in on his poor sick mother. And I'm trying to get him special privileges here at the prison, and if anything happens to me, he's going to come see you because you're the postman. He's like, you'll be lucky if he doesn't come down to this office and cancel your ass like a stamp, And he's like, so you better ensure speedy delivery and hope nothing happens to me. Walks down to Hicks, hands him his cigarettes. He's like, that's it. Oh, did you see that dirtbag I was talking to?
That smoking's bad for you.
Yeah.
God's like, ugh.
Yeah.
He's
He's like, and is anybody who smokes as much as you? It's one dumb son of a bitch.
Oh, what a
Lou
great
shuts
scene.
himself in the cell. Amazing scene. I love that, and that was some much needed humor. I think that some of the past movies kind of lacked.
Yes.
Yeah, because Harry was always good for like one-liners or something like that, but never anything that like
Nothing
carried on.
really comedic.
Yeah, and this was kind of a different direction for the character, and it's kind of sad that we didn't see it before.
Mm-hmm.
But we get this little bit in the final movie. This is where we get a little bit more foreshadowing. So now that Lou is kind of off of Harry, or so we think he is, We get a little bit more into the story. We get the shipyard thing where they're trying to film the scene. Slash is on the harpoon gun, and he shoots it, misses the dummy, hits the window, and Peter Swan's bitching at his freaking effects guy again. He's like, "Where is that, lazy piece of shit, or whatever he is?" And he comes out. He's like, "Oh, the tide shifted." He's like, "Oh, the tide shifted. The ocean's incompetent, not you." And it's one of those things. I just love those lines. And of course, he talked to the press a little bit about the Deadpool, which I think that was just filler. They did this scene just to show us what they were filming.
Yeah,
because it's a plot point they're going to throw in later. We get the death of the critic. She doesn't know who the hell he is. Just to paraphrase, he's like, "What kind of critic are you?" He rattles off a bunch of names, of movies. Shadows of the Dead, Hell Without the Devil, Night of the Slasher, and she's like, "Peter Swan?" He's like, "What do you think of my films? Give me your honest opinion." And she's like, "I like them." And he's like, "Liar!" Stabs her. So off-screen kill for the critic, which was also on Peter Swan's list. So, and I know we talked about this before. Swan movies that are in this are fake. Definitely look like movies I would watch. As far as the captain's concerned, 2 people on this guy's list are dead. He's the suspect now. And we get another unnecessary scene.
Just the copycat guy?
Yeah, Gus Wheeler. The dude who doused himself in gasoline.
Which would have won up 2 seconds after.
Oh my God. Those flares, that's an open flame.
Yeah.
And he's doused in gasoline. Gasoline vapors are what catch fire. You know what I mean? He would have gone up, the first instant that he lit one of those flares, because he wouldn't have been able to keep it far enough away from himself.
Yeah.
Which the only reason that this scene makes sense at all is to give Harry a reason to change his mind about Samantha Walker. Because he just thinks she's a bloodthirsty, news reporter at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that she's willing to step on anybody, film anything, and just exploit somebody's pain and suffering to have a story. And they did this so he could pose as a camera guy and get firsthand, visual of her telling somebody, "We're not going to film this. You can talk to me and tell me your story, but we're not going to show, the public when you die." And of course,
what does he tell him? He goes, "We'll get the weenies and the marshmallows, but we ain't filming. But you're not going to be on film."
Yeah. He's like, "You could set yourself into a bonfire and we'll break out the marshmallows and the weenies, but you ain't going to be on news at 11. Yeah, it's another good scene. And then, of course, they couldn't give you all that build up without the actual fire, so they had a mechanic for him to actually catch fire. He lit a new flare because his other one was getting low. He throws that to the side, and then the trail of gasoline hits it, right? He blazes up. Harry shoves her down, and then he tackles this guy, knock him out of the flames so that the medics can put him out. And you could see his the vinyl jacket that he was wearing is all burned right here. He just takes it off, gives it back to the camera guy, says, "Thanks." They don't give 2 more thoughts of that guy who just set himself on fire.
Yeah.
So I did appreciate how some of this movie was filmed like a slasher movie.
Yes.
I don't know
definitely.
if we really touched on that. Definitely the scene with the movie critic, I felt was done like a slasher. And I want to say that, not to jump ahead, but like whenever he went to capture Samantha and he took out her assistant, her cameraman, Bob. That was done very slasher-esque. And then of course he hops into the truck and like grabs her by the face and taunts her with the knife. But I mean, the whole scene where he grabbed Bob and like you could tell he was doing something off camera, probably cutting his throat, and then you just see the blood like hit the ground, drops the body, and it starts kicking a little bit. It's like that somebody had some experience like shooting slasher films to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like I said, somebody definitely was a horror fan who worked on this film. Maybe one or even more, but it was definitely obvious in the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what we forgot? The remote control car.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Obnoxious scene. It was,
yeah, go for it.
It was just... Okay, so the killer who's sitting in his 79 Monte Carlo, and he's got a remote control car with a bomb.
Yeah.
And at first, there's other kids, and they have a remote control car, and it's not working. So Harry and Swan drive off, and all of a sudden, the kid's like, ah, screw it, this ain't working. So when they shut their remote, now it's working. So he's driving high speed down the streets with one hand and still managing to drive this remote control car through the streets of San Francisco with the other hand.
Right.
And keeping up with the car. It's like even when he's on the sidewalk, I like how there was a guy loading fruit and there just happened to be a box with a angled ramp so the car could jump up over it. I'm like, really? I'm like, are you kidding me?
I know, it was so stupid. Yeah, the remote control car bit was cool. I mean, I have some problems with it. Like you had to get one kill with the remote control first. So like you got some random dude like getting ready to go play tennis, backs out of his garage, and he gets blown up.
Yeah.
And of course they cut to them investigating, and Harry's like, "Oh, what's this? Oh, looks like a wheel to a toy." And tosses it up on top of it. That's all you get. You never knew who the guy was.
No.
You just assumed that he was on Peter Swan's list, and they had to set up a scene where, Harry and his partner Quan could be in the same car, and they had to give him a head start, which is why they had the little thing with the remote control signal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Some kids trying to play with their remote control car, and his is on the same frequency, and like neither one of them are working. So the kids shut theirs off. So they got a head start, and then like I guess it goes down a hill and like doesn't stop fast enough, and it pulls in front of their car after driving underneath.
Yeah,
like, could have blown him up if he had
Yes.
better timing, but it's like in front of him, and suddenly like Harry like works it out like immediately. It's
Yeah.
like, oh shit!
And did you ever try and drive a remote control car?
Yes.
Like maybe I just suck at it, but it's hard as fuck.
You need two hands. Like you can't do it with one.
And even with two hands, it's like I know I've had one in the park across the street, and I've fucking banged into walls. And this guy is literally driving through the streets of San Francisco with it while driving another car.
Yeah. He's in a high speed pursuit, and he's like operating this thing that should take two hands.
Yes,
we have to assume he's using one hand. I like to think that he's using two hands and he's driving with his foot.
Yeah.
Because how do you have the dexterity and the multi-skill task to do that? And that was basically my problem with this whole scene. And I even wrote it down. I'm like, my thoughts on the remote control car. I mean, and they're doing like high speed chase streets of San Francisco. Their cars are getting all banged up, like they're ramping off these high.
Well, they said
streets.
that whole scene was based on Bullet.
Right.
The 69 Steve McQueen movie from 68 with the Mustang. But with just a remote control car.
Yeah. Which was a nice take, and I enjoyed that. But to me, I feel like the remote control car probably couldn't do the same speeds as the other cars.
No way.
That's my take on it. Although they claim in the trivia that it outpaced the car a couple of times. But I'm thinking it's just because they really weren't doing high speed,
Yeah.
and the car could the little remote control because they kind of like beefed it up. Like they used like a bigger battery with like more output.
And it may be possible because I know some
Yeah.
people that are into that stuff, and you could build better engines for them,
Yeah.
just like you could beef them up just like anything else if you put the money into them.
Yeah.
But that's probably on a straight run. You're talking about going through, and there was one point where the truck pulled in front of the car and the remote went under it. So he didn't even, there was, until he went around the car, didn't even see where that fucking remote control car was going. And it was still
Exactly.
following the fucking car like
Yeah.
perfectly.
They're making turns. It's following like it's like I know it's so crazy. There's no way he was doing that. The killer could not drive in pursuit in that Monte Carlo and control the car with that level of precision. I don't see it happening.
No.
And we also have to assume that this remote control car is laden with enough explosives to blow up a full-size sedan.
Yeah.
So it's like it should be heavier and it should be sluggish because it's heavier, because we find out in a later scene that it's C4 inside there. And yeah, you can deliver a big punch with a small
definitely.
amount of C4, but it does have some weight. I feel like the battery would have gone dead before it got anywhere near him after that chase.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's fun, but it's bullshit.
Exactly. It was a fun thing, but total.
Yeah. But you still had a cool scene at the end of it, because somehow, whether it was accidentally or on purpose, Harry goes down a dead-end street and he goes to turn around, and suddenly he's basically backed into a corner watching this remote control car advance on him. And he's like, I got no more moves. So like the car very slowly goes underneath theirs. He puts his car in reverse and freaking floors it to try to back away in a last-ditch effort to avoid being blown up.
Yeah.
And it like blows up in the front of the car. So basically the engine takes the impact instead of them in and we'll say the I don't know, cockpit of the car.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call that,
Yeah.
The actual like
Driver's
cabin.
seat and passengers. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of made sense to me. But of course, Harry gets out without a scratch.
Poor Quan gets fucking impaled.
Yeah. He's not knocked out from the concussion or anything like that. He's not like holding his head, with his ringing ears. Quan's the only one who gets injured because it's only Harry's partners that ever get hurt.
Right?
And
if his grandfather didn't paint those protective Chinese symbols on him,
right,
they could have been dead.
That's right. Yeah, we forgot to mention that.
Tell your grandpappy maybe grandpappy should paint me paint some signs on me.
That's right. Yeah, we kind of skipped over all that.
Yeah, we forgot. That's a funny line.
Yeah, it's more exposition on Quan.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They had that jogging scene where right before Harry beats up more of Gennaro's men, who were basically put there to protect him, which was the only time we saw that. It didn't appear anywhere else in the movie after that. But supposedly Gennaro was so scared something was going to happen to Harry that he ordered.
Now he's got guys protecting
him. But Quan was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go." He's like, "Oh, what's with all this?" It looks like he's got tattoos on him. He's like, "Oh, one of my grandfather's superstitions." He's like, he put all these things to ward off like evil energy. He's like, I'm just trying to honor the guy. I just let him do it. And right before the remote control car scene, Harry's like listening to Quan tell him, "Oh, maybe you ought to lay low for a while." He's like, maybe I'll just have your granddaddy paint me up. So get the remote control car scene. Now we got Quan in the hospital. Doctor explaining, we drained some fluid off of his chest. It's like, good thing he was wearing that bulletproof vest. Probably saved his life. And then somehow Quan's awake. He's like, "Oh yeah, another one of my granddad's superstitions. If somebody gives you advice, take it." Like, okay. It's like he's the first guy in Harry Callahan history that ever took his advice.
Yeah, really.
You know, and I thought that was a cool callback to an earlier point in the movie. That goes all the way back to the beginning,
Yes.
right after the opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
He gave that bit of advice to him, and like we had a callback right then to that. I was like, you know what? This is really well written
Yes.
for being a garbage movie about.
Well, you look at it this way. Quan looked like a smart guy.
Yeah.
So in reality, if they are teaming you up with Harry Callahan, like, wouldn't you do your research and say, yeah, this guy died? Oh, fuck. I was like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm getting a bulletproof vest.
Yeah, exactly. And he should. And given Harry's reputation, you know, for having partners get seriously injured or killed, I mean, it makes sense that somebody this late in the game would be a little bit more concerned about their safety. You know, I think we also left out the part where they determined that letters that Peter Swan received matched the typewriter that was used to send the Deadpool letters to the press. And they figured out that was a character by the name of Harlan Rook. He was evidently a groupie that was obsessed with Peter Swan and his movies, and would kind of like seek him out, and became worrisome enough that Peter Swan had a restraining order against him to maintain distance. So they never worked together. He was just an obsessed fan. And of course, right after that hospital scene with Quan, they immediately have a talk with a hospital psychiatrist who found the case file and met them there. So it was just a convenient meeting.
Yeah.
You know, they were already in the hospital. Let's talk to the psychiatrist. And I found it really weird that this psychiatrist couldn't look anybody in the eye. Like, he was acting a scene and he was like looking off to the side and all this stuff. Like, he kind of acted crazy himself, you know, which I thought was interesting. But all it did was solidify that, oh yeah, this Harlan Rook guy, you know, he's a whack job and he has no personality of his own. And
crazy horror fans, man.
Yeah, I know. Crazy horror fans. They are just everywhere. So, and this is about the same time that the killer calls Samantha Walker and pretends to be Peter Swan and wants to offer her an exclusive interview. I don't know why she wasn't like red flagged by that. It's like, oh yeah, you know,
yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you question that a little bit?
Or at least tell Harry, say, hey, come with me, you know.
Yeah. But apparently she did have the good sense to basically tell the news office that it was down at the shipyards, because they do that whole thing with, you know, the captain telling Harry that. It's like, yeah, I can't get a hold of Sam, you know, but the news place said she went down for an interview with Swan at the shipyards. You know, this is after he was almost blown up. He had, you know, some very important plot points explained to him. He goes back to the apartment that they're investigating. Doesn't take any time off, you know what I mean, after almost being killed. Gets to see like all the posters and the typewriter and the explosives and the remote control car parts all in the dude's like apartment. Goes outside, talks to the captain for like 5 seconds where they have this exposition. Yeah, she's down at the shipyards. Steals the captain's car to go down there. And for some reason, even though it's the middle of the day, whenever Harry gets down there, it's nighttime.
It's nighttime. I noticed that, but that must have been a long drive.
Hell yes. Or it was right at dusk when he left, and it was dark when he got there 20 minutes later. I don't know. I thought that was funny, but I dismissed it from my mind. And of course, no Scooby-Doo story would be complete, you know, without the killer like describing his motivations directly to the person he's getting ready to kill. You know what I mean? They do that in every like villain movie. They did it in every episode of Batman. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like
just spill his whole whole agenda.
They can't just kill you. They have to tell you why.
Why?
And of course, we do get the neat thing where she fights back. He starts, I don't know, manhandling or something, and presses play on the boombox. So "Welcome to the Jungle" comes back. you know, Harry finally gets there. He's not a fan of that music. He just blows a hole right in the jukebox. And this dude is like, "Hey, I got her. I'm gonna kill her. Kick me your gun." And he's like, "Hold on a second." Slides the door shut to the warehouse and locks it with this big ass padlock. He's like, "You just locked yourself in, asshole." He's like, "Yeah, just you and me, asshole." But he does cut her neck a little bit, and that kind of changes his mind. All right. He's serious. He drops his gun on the ground, kicks it over. So he's trying to hold her and reach the gun at the same time. That's not working out super well. Harry grabs a big ass wrench over to the side, doesn't hit him with it, throws it and hits the big ass camera in the corner that's got the light on it. Sam takes off running, and we got a cat and mouse now. We got a cat and mouse chase through this warehouse, factory, whatever the hell you want to call it, down at the shipyards. I don't know. This dude's an idiot. He's shooting at sounds.
Yeah.
He's not even taking carefully aimed shots. It's like, dude, you got a revolver. Harry took one shot. That leaves
You're already down one
5.
shot. So yeah.
Yeah. You got 5 at most. Well, Harry shoves her into her room, tells her to stay there. He goes into another room, knocks out a window, draws a guy outside while she's still inside. And they run down to that area where they were shooting the scene earlier in the movie, with the harpoon. Guy can't figure out where he's at. Thinks he's inside this little shack.
When he comes walking out of the smoke with that harpoon, because everybody is like, obviously, he doesn't have his gun.
Yeah.
So, like what? So what's gonna happen? His gun is out of bullets. Even if he gets it back, there's no bullets in it.
Yeah.
And he just comes out of the smoke with that freaking harpoon.
Yeah. We get another amazing callback. He's like, "You're out of bullets. And you know what that means."
You're shit out of luck.
And so it's like, I feel like they were lampooning, the Harry Callahan movies here by having him use this ridiculously huge harpoon gun.
Yeah, because it was.
I mean, he's done it in other movies, like in The Enforcer. He used the rocket launcher for that kill. I don't remember how. He blew up the captain in Magnum Force with a bomb in the back.
With the bomb in the back, yes.
Yeah. So like they always do some big like final kill for Harry in these movies.
But this was like crossed like the ridiculous range, like point. I was just like, this it was hysterical.
Right. So I even wrote it down here. I said, most ridiculous kill ever, but it's so fun.
Exactly.
So I know we spoiled the shit out of this movie. Anybody who hasn't watched it, I highly recommend it. Maybe you're not into cop flicks, but totally go check it out and watch it.
And he's got his last comedic line when he tells the captain, where is he? He's hanging around back there.
That's right. That is right. I don't know, man. I feel like I did a lot of talking about this one. Is there
For what it is, it's a great movie, man.
Yeah. Any final thoughts you want on this film? Go for it.
I didn't mention the box office. The budget for this movie was $31 million.
Really?
And the box office was $37.9 million.
Oh, wow. So it was technically successful, but I'm sure that they were hoping for it to be
more,
to double.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's kind of the goal.
I mean, for a movie of the 80s, I'm sure they were expecting a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Than 6.9 million profit.
Yeah. And did you happen to read why this movie was even made?
No, I didn't.
Apparently, Warner Brothers made a I don't know if it was a verbal deal or a handshake deal or if they actually had a contract, but like they actually funded one of Clint Eastwood's pet projects to like do like almost like a documentary on a musician. I don't have it in front of me, so I forget what it was called. But it was the same year, 1988, that he did that movie on that musician. Warner Brothers funded it. And the only thing they asked in return was that he make another commercial movie for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't even agree on what. But what that turned out to be was another Harry Callahan movie. And they had this script written up, and he did it to satisfy that agreement.
Well,
So
I read that he didn't mind doing this movie because he's in an interview with him that he said that he goes, it's kind of nice having this character. He goes, me going back to play Harry Callahan, sort of like visiting an old friend.
yeah.
He goes, so I kind of, but they asked him also like, well, what would you do for another? He goes, I think Harry Callahan's done after this. He goes, I think he said, I picture Harry off somewhere fishing and getting aggravated that he's not catching it with the fishing pole and pulling out his gun and just starting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And one thing and even as a comic fan, I forgot about this one. Rob Liefeld, the creator of Deadpool, said that he named Deadpool because of this movie.
Isn't that crazy?
I never knew that. And I'm a huge comic fan and Deadpool fan and never knew that.
I'd have never thought that in a dozen years.
Right? That blew my mind.
Yeah. It's like, so, I mean, even though this movie technically didn't do that well, it did have a fan base.
Big time.
And we are two of them.
You know what? The character is, I mean, it's very he's an influential character, whether you like guns or not, or you cannot deny. I mean, when they came out with the Smith & Wesson Model 29, it didn't really do well.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted the gun. They had so many of them, stores weren't selling them. They're like, who wants a gun that shoots that big, like this big caliber?
Yeah.
That movie came out, they couldn't keep them in the stores.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And Harry Callahan is not one of these people that you want to model yourself after. I mean, he's an asshole.
For yourself.
He's an asshole. He's a misogynist. He's a chauvinist. He's a dickhead.
But he's cool as fuck. I don't care what, no matter what situation, even like he could have machine guns after him. He could be car chases. He's so like, meh, like, doesn't bother him.
And he is effectively unstoppable. It's like he's never been shot. Like bullets just miss this guy. You know what I mean? They
should have sent him after Michael Myers.
They probably should have. Because he would be the only person that Michael Myers would be unable to stab. It's like nothing hits this guy.
Right?
Although I want to throw in one other thing. Like the influence of this movie did go beyond the movies themselves. I mean, like every time somebody did an impression of Clint Eastwood, it was almost 100% of the time a Harry Callahan impression. And there was even a TV show. You may remember it. I think it was in the 90s.
I know what you're going to say.
Sledgehammer?
I have the whole season, whole complete series on DVD.
That entire show was a Harry Callahan impression.
Exactly.
And even the gun that he had.
With David Rash.
What's the difference? It was nickel-plated and it had white ivory grips, with a sledgehammer on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was the only difference. I mean, he basically had the same gun. Instead of a
Model 29 like Harry had, he had the 629, which was the nickel-plated.
There you go.
That was a great show, man.
I used to watch that shit all the time. I still remember the theme music.
Yeah.
It was a great show. I loved it. And all it did was lampoon Harry Callahan.
Yes.
That's all it did. So cool.
It is. And like any movie, how many countless movies where anybody picks up any gun, go ahead, make my day. It's Feeling Lucky Punk. It's mimicked so many times, so many places.
Oh yeah.
It's so you can't take that away from it. It's
Yeah.
just
It's a little less relevant these days. Not as many people remember Harry Callahan, but for a long time, it echoed in pop culture, and it's still relevant to people like you and me,
no.
I think.
And I told you, me and you were gun guys.
Yeah.
That was a grail gun for me, which I never thought I would get.
Oh, that's right. You got one.
They're never, they're not that common anymore. And sure enough, me and my daughter were in Cabela's, and they had a used one in immaculate shape for like $800. And I was like, my daughter saw my look. She goes, "That's the one you always like." Even she knew as a kid. I was like, I gotta call grandma. I was like, and I said, "You need to work on." She actually called my mother because I said I can't leave the store without this gun. I said I don't have enough. I said, but I was like, "Ma, can you put this on your credit?" I asked the guys like, if I buy that gun, can my mom call with her credit card and they'll send it to my gun store in Long Island? And he's like, yeah, that's no problem. And I was like, now I got to ask my mother. It's like, Ma. And I even made my daughter did me a solid and called him. And she's like, Grandma, yeah, he's been wanting this gun it's like, and he never found it. And he really wants it. And she was like, all right. Well, I'm like, way to go, kid.
Oh man.
And it was great because I did, and it was so funny because when I was doing the paperwork and everything at Cabela's, my mother was on the phone with the woman there doing it, and she's like, you're buying it? You're like, there's all these people around me, everybody's online. You're buying it? She goes, you have such a nice mom that'll buy a gun for you. I'm like, all right, lady, let's just move it along.
Yeah, you're laying it on thick here,
I'm like, she was so like, oh, that's so cool that you bought a gun for your son. You're doing this for him. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, you're like, tone it down. She's really going to feel like I owe her now.
And I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait to go. And even when I went to the gun store, my local shop in Long Island, when it came and they took it out, all the guys there were like, that worked there, they were like, whoa, this is fucking awesome. I'm like, that's right, motherfucker. I love it.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Well, my dad was always a Harry Callahan fan, and I think he also wanted that gun. He never got one. What he did get though was a Dan Wesson 357 mag with like basically the same length barrel, and it looks eerily similar.
Dan Wesson makes quality guns.
He still has it. I've shot that gun. It's very nice. But I mean,
they're valuable now too because now Dan Wesson only makes 1911s.
Oh wow!
They were bought by CZ.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of CZ, right? Firearms.
Yes.
They were bought by CZ, and now they make high quality, very expensive 1911s. They don't make revolvers anymore. So if you have a revolver, it's big.
It's rare.
For you to buy
it's rare now. Yeah.
Very.
How about that? I
and
didn't know that.
I mean, it's Daniel Wesson's great grandson that started that company from Smith & Wesson.
Wow. That's awesome.
See,
I never knew all that stuff. That's kind of cool to get that background filled in a little bit talking about that.
Now they've always made quality. Because I went recently, not too long ago, looking to purchase a Dan Wesson revolver, and I was like, they don't make them no more. I went on their site. It's like they only make. I went on Gunbroker, and I was like, well, they're pretty up there now because they're hard to find.
Yeah. Wow. Just out of curiosity, I might ask my dad to let me get the serial number off of it. See if maybe I can find out a little bit more about it, and kind of find out what the model is and how much they're going for. Just out of curiosity. Not that I would ever sell it.
No, not at all.
I know he won't.
Will he let you shoot it? Pick a range day and we'll go. I'll bring the 29 and we'll go.
Maybe. Yeah, he might. I could.
Oh, you bring your dad
ask him.
too.
Yeah, I could do that. That'd be cool. Yeah, I got some other ones that I want to shoot. I mean, like I said, I never shot that XD45 that I got. Gonna have to do that sometime. You know. Yeah, and we got here in Pennsylvania, you can use public ranges as long as you got a hunting license.
Oh, cool.
So, or some other permit.
Mhm.
I don't know how that works for you. We'll just hope that nobody shows up. Start asking for IDs and stuff.
I'm gonna start looking into it and find out. I should be able to.
Yeah. You could probably get a range permit for Pennsylvania if you're going to be traveling to do that. I don't know how that works, but Pennsylvania is so easy when it comes to firearms. A little too easy, if you want my honest opinion.
And you know what else I almost got? Remember in what was it, in Sudden Impact, and what was the other movie? He used the Automag.
Oh yeah.
Which the Automag was basically a 44 Magnum, but it
was semi-automatic.
It was made by AMT Corp.
Yeah.
It was and it was chambered in 44 AMT, which basically same rounds as a 44 Magnum, but they were rimmed. They were not rimmed because they were meant to feed in a magazine.
Right.
I'm going back maybe now 15 years ago. A girl I know, a good friend of mine, was dating a guy who's either he or his old man worked for AMT.
Oh.
And still was able to get one. And like when she was talking, she's like, my friend Mike's big into guns. She goes in and she's like, did you ever hear of AMT Auto? I was like, yeah, that's the gun from Dirty Harry. And she's like, the guy I'm talking to used to work for them. And I was like, and she said he could get one. Because I guess he told her, he's like, if your friend's into one, I could get him one.
Wow.
At a considerably good price too. And I was like, I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in. I was like, do it up. And I was talking, and like apparently things didn't go well for them.
Okay.
And I was like, she's like, yeah, I'm not talking. I was like, you couldn't just keep it going. I was like, what the fuck, man?
She broke up with him before the deal was done.
I was so pumped. I was like, I'm gonna get a fucking Automag. I was like, nobody. And now you even on Gunbroker, you can't find them.
Oh, I bet. I bet they're impossible.
I mean, there's a couple other AMT guns that they are still floating around, but not the Automag.
Yeah.
I was like, I was so mad. I was like, why'd you even tell me? I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, I even considered. I was like, can I call him? She's like, no, he's a dick. No, like, I'm like, fuck, man. I'm like,
she wouldn't even give you the number. Oh, come on.
Well, I don't know what transpired between them, so he might have charged me triple if he friggin'. But I was like, God, I was like that close. I was like,
that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that.
I was like, fuck.
I'd be happy with just shooting one time. You know what I mean?
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
if I ever had the opportunity, I would.
I don't have to own it. Just say, oh yeah, I shot one of those one time.
Well, he shot one on Demolition Ranch. He got his hands on one.
Oh really?
And it jammed incredibly. He said he hated it.
Oh okay.
So that kind of makes me feel a little better.
Yeah.
But I still want it.
Imagine how disappointed you would have been if you like spent the money, even if it was a good deal. You know, it was hundreds.
Yeah.
And you get that thing, and all it wants to do is jam as soon as you try to shoot it.
If you look it up, that's the name of his video. I bought the Dirty Harry gun and instantly regret it because it just keeps jamming, even though he tried different ammo, and it just keeps jamming.
Yeah.
And he's like, fuck. He's like, God damn it.
Yeah. Probably nicknamed it Bob Marley in the video because it's just be jamming, Yeah. All right. Well, you want to put a number on this movie?
Oh.
I gave this one nostalgia points.
Absolutely.
I did my typical checklist. As I said, this is a childhood movie for me. I saw this in the theater with my dad. There's no way I could talk bad about it. Even though I did kind of trash it a little bit when we talked about it. There was some bullshit that happened,
But it's
it was fun bullshit.
it's fun. I was just gonna say it's fun bullshit.
They did a lot of things really well. I liked the camera work. There were some talented people who worked on this. The soundtrack was awesome, and they did a weird thing. You don't typically get a song that's in modern pop culture that makes its way into a movie. It happens sometimes, but not a lot. Usually, they like to do like original soundtracks, so they don't have to pay royalties out to a band, that type of shit. But this was a really cool movie. It was memorable. I would definitely watch it again. I would definitely recommend it to people, even though they might hate it. So I gave it a 21 out of 30. I didn't give it any wild card points because I feel like I was very favorable towards this with my nostalgia factor. So that's 24 out of 30. That's I'm sorry, 21 out of 30, 70%, 7 out of 10. So I feel it's a good score for this movie. Maybe higher than it deserves. How do you feel about it?
I'm around the same place. 7 out of 10, maybe. Maybe the most is 7.5 out of 10. Because, like I said, it's one of those movies. Could be any amount, any time, and I could put it on and I can enjoy it. It's got the nostalgia factor. I think of my dad whenever I watch these movies, who's not here anymore. So I'll go to 7.5 out of 10.
Fantastic. Yep. It doesn't surprise me that we'd have a similar score in this movie. I mean, it's great. It's
like we said, even the ridiculous parts they're ridiculous fun. They didn't make the movie bad. They gave you something to like laugh at, but still made them enjoyable in the movie.
Yeah. And even though I reviewed it favorably, I really feel like I did give this an honest look, and pointed out a few things that maybe didn't need to be there. But incredibly, I wouldn't change a thing.
No, not at all. Like I said, I liked it better than The Enforcer.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's not tough to do.
Yeah.
I went back and watched that movie, and I was like, God, what a pile of shit. It's like, it didn't even make any sense. The writing was so terrible on it.
And they just made him like extra douchey in it.
I know. He was the biggest asshole that he's ever been in a Dirty Harry movie, in that movie. And like, no wonder it was fucking horrible. And I'm not even getting into that. It's fucking terrible.
Well, now you need to go watch Sudden Impact.
I do. One of these nights I'm going to have to put that on. Maybe we can do a watch along, because you probably won't mind seeing it again.
Not at all.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode. If you have not seen this movie, we encourage you to go out and see it. Whether you like cop movies or not, whether you like Clint Eastwood or not. It's a good time, fun experience. And Mike, any final words?
I leave you. It's like I said, it's a nice ride, a lot of fun. Do yourself a favor and watch it.
Yeah.
If you like it, you like it. If you don't, have fun. Cool.
There you go. Take a walk. So yeah, on behalf of Evil Mike and myself, I remind you all, remember.
Smile, you son of a...